2,000 years ago, housing the Ark of the Covenant in a chamber so sacred only the high priest could enter once per year. That temple was destroyed by Babylonians in 586 BCE. A second temple rose and fell to Roman legions in 70 CE. For Muslims, this is the noble sanctuary where Muhammad ascended to heaven. For Christians, this is where Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers. Three faiths. One, hilltop.
Christians and Muslims have all developed remarkably similar notions of the divine. Even though they were often working in isolation from one another, and often in a state of totally hostility with one another, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim theologians continued to ask the same kind of questions about God.
And a political arrangement so fragile that any archaeological activity could spark riots, or war. One misplaced shovel could ignite an international incident. So for over a century, the secrets beneath the Temple Mount remained untouchable until the walk of bulldozers changed everything. When Israeli archaeologists saw truckloads of irreplaceable history being dumped like garbage, they were devastated.
This is a very interesting moment. What are we going to do? Because a snapshot for the history that happened here 2,600 years ago. These discoveries shed more light on ancient Jerusalem and paint a more complete picture of King David's city.
Millennia of potential discoveries had been ripped from context and scattered without documentation. But two researchers saw something else, an opportunity. Gabriel Barthet had spent his entire career studying Jerusalem's ancient past. He had already made one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, tiny silver scrolls inscribed with the oldest biblical texts ever. Now in his 60s, watching sacred soil being hauled to a landfill, something broke inside him. He could not let 3,000 years of human heritage disappear. His colleague, Dr. Gabila, shared the same fire. Together, they launched the Temple Mount Sifting Project. Operating out of a public park in East Jerusalem, they began the painstaking process of recovering what had been lost. Volunteers arrived from around the world. Day after day, year after year, they sifted through that discarded earth by hand, bucket by bucket, fragment by fragment. What they found was staggering. Over 500,000 artifacts. But seeing my turnout became extremely difficult.
Turn it off for a second. More water. Water. Oh. Oh. Well, I'm running out of water. Now, it's actually one thing. Oh. Get back on here on the tablet. Not that, the summary period. Put that together.
Difficult and painful, but ever since I bought this latest German smart electric nail product, nail trimming has become incredibly fabulous. Over 500,000 artifacts learned. Coins from the time of Pharaoh. Arrowheads from the Crusader era. Jewelry from Islamic period. Pottery shards spanning dozens of civilizations. Here we check black and white and on nice pieces of pottery and other things that we have been here for 3,000 years. It's very simple. There's no process that shows us better than this one. It proves that everything we said about it, we thought about it, we dreamt about it, we prayed about it, we could. Then came the discovery of new research we found. A volunteer noticed a small hardened lump of clay, flattened and cracked and raised. When examined under magnification, it revealed itself to be a bullet, an ancient steel impression, once used to secure official documents. The inscription was Paleo Hebrew. It read, belonging to Yaakov, son of Uma. The name Uma appears in the book of Jeremiah as a priestly family active during the first temple period. This tiny piece of clay confirmed the existence of a real person mentioned in the scripture. Someone who had lived and worked on this very site nearly 3,000 years ago. Mournful life, names and titles that aligned with biblical records, symbols depicting menorahs, temple gates, and priestly garments. But here is the catch.
Hahaha has a reputation for being overseas. We're proud to be known for our outstanding hometown customer service. We've been doing things that way for over 50 years. But how about now offers new modern convenience for exciting country visitors, online appointment scheduling. You can easily shop for tires and see our current stuff right from your computer or smartphone. Just tell you to stop into one of our stores or come see us online at thatloveTireService.com. Modern convenience is all about service. Not much tire service at all, I think.
We promise a tenfold refund if it doesn't work. The discount entries can release your own lock and change your facial contour over time, but this venture completely avoids such issues. It can be worn successfully in just 1 second and is suitable for everyone. Whether you have a full set of teeth, partial tooth loss, or no teeth at all, there's no need for a dentist, dentist, or a pump. You simply soak it in hot water to activate the elastic material, pipe down to fit it to your unique oral shape, and you'll have brand new dentures in just a few minutes. My friends will say they look so realistic, just like dental implants. It addresses the root cause of missing or loose teeth, solving various issues like sensitivity and difficulty chewing. The soft silicone is suitable for any oral condition, very durable, and feels like a natural part of your mouth. It has obtained international standard certification. No more spending big money at dental clinics to make dentures. We promise a full refund if it doesn't perform like real teeth. They won't rub or slip, providing a secure and natural wearing experience, allowing you to eat whatever you want. I can speak clearly and smile without worry. I've been wearing them daily for several months, and they still feel like They look better than the dentures my dentist made for me, and I installed them myself at home. Say goodbye to expensive orthodontic treatments and dental implants. This invisible aligner solves all your problems. You can eat freely without restrictions. Confidently showcase your charming soft silicone dentures. They fit perfectly with no pain or discomfort, allowing you to express emotions naturally. Long-term wear can gradually improve the structure of the dental arch, correct and coordinate the alignment of your teeth. It also helps reduce swelling and relieve tension. made of antibacterial silicone that can last for decades with normal use. And even if you occasionally quit cleaning for a month, it won't yellow, discolor, or develop unpleasant odors. Upon receiving the product, if you're not satisfied, you can request a refund at any time. This is yellow teeth making you afraid to smile. Difficulty seeing through or under a teeth. In just 1 second, it's perfectly fit your teeth, easily resolving all dental issues. I've been using these dentures for over 10 years without any damage, and they are still very effective. Whether the food is sweet, sour, bitter, or spicy, it works for toothache, and suitable for all ages. Try now to enjoy the lowest price. Made of antibacterial silicone, it's easy to clean. Even if you don't clean it for a month, it won't produce any odor. As experts who have studied dentures for over 30 years, it is back to our loyal customers. The first 80 customers will not only enjoy a 50% discount, but also a free 15-day trial. If you don't like it, find it unsuitable, or have any issues, you can request a refund at any time within 15 days.
But here's the catch. These first sample artifacts were not distributed randomly throughout the soil. They concentrated in specific areas, pointing towards particular sections of the mountain, sections that corresponded with ancient descriptions of sacred zones. The sifting project had not just recovered lost artifacts. It had provided a map, breadcrumbs leading somewhere specific. Now scientists needed to follow them to their source. If you are fascinated by forbidden history like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss on the next. The Hidden Networks between 2021 and 2024, a new generation of researchers began combining cutting-edge technology with overlooked historical documents. Their focus was the southern edge of the Temple Mount, near the Western Wall Tunnel. British surveyors during the Ottoman and Mandate eras had mapped strange underground voids in mystery, changes, staircases, hollow spaces that defied explanation. But for generations, those reports had gathered dust and archives, dismissed as incomplete or unreliable. The new team decided to verify. Since physical excavation beneath the Temple Mount remains forbidden, they deployed ground penetrating radar, the same technology that had detected hidden chambers inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. The scans revealed something remarkable. Beneath the bedrock, straight edges and geometric shapes appeared where natural geology should have produced only irregular stones, the signatures of man-made construction, sealed away for centuries. When researchers overlaid the radar data with hand-drawn British maps from the early 1900s, the outlines matched the same corridors, the same block staircase, the same suspicious voids. A century of technological advancement had just confirmed what explorers had suspected long ago. But here is the catch. As workers carefully cleared debris from an ancient Herodian structure in the Western Wall Tunnel, they uncovered a partially buried staircase carved into limestone. It descended into darkness. What they found at the bottom was a forgotten entrance. The upper walls bore Byzantine era carvings, faded crosses, inscriptions from the 4th or 5th century. This space had clearly served as an early Christian worship site. But when researchers examined the floor, they discovered something far older than this.
For thousands of years, these views are connected. The Arab Muslims who study cover, how to get it away from us. This connects us from our identity to this. What we're going to do is to go underneath the surface. Covered truth. What?
The foundation stones were massive, finely cut asphalt blocks, stacked with precision, rarely seen in others.
When you buy hearing aids at Walmart, watch this. What I discovered could save you from making $200 mistakes. For anyone who's
actually seen after the first sample period. Then came the detail that sent chills through a secondary staircase, half collapsed, and filled with rock, led even deeper into the bedrock. It had been deliberately blocked, not by natural collapse, not by the passage of time, by human hands. Someone long ago had wanted this passage sealed forever. They had intentionally hidden whatever lay beyond. The subterranean. As researchers mapped the areas around these sealed chambers, they discovered something that shifted their understanding entirely. A network of underground systems, channels, and aqueducts carved directly into the bedrock. The system was vast, interconnected, and engineered with sophistication that defied expectations for its era. Carbon dating of mineral residue around the plaster line produced a result that stunned the team. These waterworks were not Roman. They were not corroding. They dated to the first century, the 8th and 9th century BCE. But the age was not what stopped the expedition. It was the design. The system demonstrated hydraulic planning far ahead of its time. Narrow heating tunnels allowed rainwater runoff in full reservoirs in ways that prevented stagnation. Overflow ducts redirected excess water to secondary chambers, preventing flooding while maintaining supply. The engineering accounted for flow rate and seasonal variation in the region, notorious for dry summer. This was not primitive infrastructure. This was sacred engineering. When researchers overlaid maps of the Cistercian network with ancient textual descriptions, connections emerged that had never been made before. Several cisterns aligned perfectly with locations mentioned in the Book of Chronicles, which described water preparations made by Israelite kings to support temple rituals. One particularly large basin sat beneath the spot that, according to Hebrew texts, had once held the altar of sacrifice. That basin was lined with thick layers of ash and thin traces of organic residue, signs of repeated use over many generations, ritual hand washing, cleansing of ceremonial tools, libation offerings. This was not primitive religion. It was a machine of holiness. And the camels led directly to those sealed chambers that no one had entered in over 2,000 years. The stone of the Shechim. The researchers moved carefully in the darkness, past ancient water channels, past buried priestly chambers, past the blocked staircase that someone had sealed with such deliberate finality. Dr. Yuval Baruch, the lead archaeologist, felt his pulse hammering in his ears. The path was narrow. The air grew thick, ancient, untouched by human lungs for millennia. And there, at the end of a corridor that had not seen light before the common era, they found a sealed stone threshold. Baruch's hands trembled as he helped remove the final stone. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The weight of what they were about to see pressed down on every person in that tunnel. The only sound was breathing. Rapid, shallow. The chamber beyond was small. No more than 10 feet across. Its walls were cut straight into bedrock, smooth and undecorated. But what sat in the center stopped every person in their tracks. A stone basin, round and shallow, half buried in ash.
Where are we now? We're now standing below the western wall plaza, a huge pocket with beautiful ancient music.
Around it, fragments burned in small offerings and blackened clay oil lamps arranged with unsettling care. Unlike other spaces that had collapsed naturally over time, this chamber had been deliberately preserved. Whoever sealed it had intended for it to remain untouched forever. The team stood in absolute silence. Baruch later described the moment as feeling like time had stopped, like the air itself was holding its breath. One of the younger researchers, Dr. Sarah Mizrahi, had tears streaming down her face before anyone had spoken a word. They all sensed what they were looking at. They just could not bring themselves to say it. The basin bore markings faded by millennia, but legible under the archaeological light. The strip was paleo-Egypt. Baruch leaned closer. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. Deep and well sealed. His spirit never leaves. The words hung in the stale air. Someone gasped. Mizrahi covered her mouth with both hands. Here is the catch. Those words were not random poetry. They were not a general blessing of dedication. They aligned with ancient biblical descriptions of only one place in existence, the Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber of the temple, where, according to Scripture, the Shekinah, the divine presence of God, was said to physically dwell, a space so sacred that only the high priest could enter, and only once per year, on the Day of Atonement. No artifact from that space has ever been recovered. No physical evidence of its existence had ever surfaced, until now. The dating was verified. The lamps matched other examples from the 8th to 7th century BC. The basement limestone composition was consistent with materials used during Solomon's reign.
And that was actually the first part that they built in several years ago. But when I used to get people through the tour, they used to hear the workers above. And we were all waiting, excited to when will the time be open to prayer, and that day finally happened. They've been working on this project for 10 years.
The inscription's phrasing and structure were identical to phrases found in First Temple era religious texts, some of which had only been recovered from the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 20th century. This chamber delivered what generations of archaeologists had only dreamed of finding: physical, datable evidence of the most sacred zone beneath the Temple Mount, evidence that aligned directly with biblical tradition, evidence that transformed faith into fact. Someone thousands of years ago had left a message, a testimony carved in rock to ensure the truth would never be forgotten, no matter how many empires rose and fell above it. The revelation, the discovery, has sent quiet shockwaves through the academic world. But the announcement the authorities who know what was found understand the implications. The Temple Mount remains sacred to three global religions. Any claim that one tradition's narrative has been definitively proven could ignite questions that spread far beyond Jerusalem's walls. This discovery is a lit match in a room full of them. Some Christian communities redefine as tangible confirmation that the biblical account is a historical record. Evangelical theologian Dr. Michael Brown called the discovery the most significant archaeological validation of Scripture.
That is Jewish covenant theology. The teaching that you have your own covenant with God, and do not eat Jesus. False and dangerous heresy. Sadly, there's some well-meaning Christian Zionists who wait for this so advocate.
Since the Dead Sea Scrolls, though he cautioned that its implications would take decades to fully understand. Some Orthodox Jewish leaders have responded with caution, even warning. Rabbi David Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, worst enemies for weight loss.
Do not make apple cider vinegar before you eat it. Here's a worse to help you trim down hundreds of wet. I tell people that all the people have David Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel. Reportedly stated that while the discovery confirms what the faithful always knew, disturbing the area officially changed without proper spiritual separation remains a transgression of the highest rule. For them, this discovery is not right. It is trespass. Islamic authorities have remained largely silent, though sources have been concerned about how the findings might be used to advance the reported. The delicate status
Discovering something else has never felt more threatening. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the scientific work has begun. Researchers are now lobbying for action to deploy nuanced solutions. Part of the standing method that detected hidden ores inside the Great Pyramid of Giza in 2017. The hope is that without disturbing the surface, they can map additional chambers and may still lie hidden. But what stunned many experts was not just the age of the discovery, it was what it represented about the building. This was not primitive work conducted by superstitious ancients. This was sophisticated secret engineering and precise hydraulics. Deliberate preservation. The civilization that understood something profound about the relationship between physical space and divine presence, and encoded atoms in stone designed to last forever. What waits to be changed remains here. Messages remain unread. The radar scans reveal voids that have never been seen. One directly beneath the dome of the rock itself, measuring approximately 40 feet across. Researchers believe this void may contain the largest undiscovered space beneath the entire continent. What lies inside remains unknown. The political and religious barriers to investigation may never be overcome. So the door, in fact, for 3,000 years, this ground held in silence. Now, for the first time, researchers have reached a chamber that was never meant to be open, and they found exactly what ancient texts said. What other truths lie buried beneath the surface? If this discovery changed what you thought you knew, smash that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into lost history. Drop a comment below and tell me, do you think researchers will open the remaining sealed chamber, or should some secret stay buried forever? Click here for more forbidden discoveries that mainstream archaeology does not want you to see.
These transforming glasses automatically adjust what you're looking at. All glasses have this tiny flaw, the researchers. You see, the lenses inside prescription glasses all have fixed diopters, which works, but only for one job. We all know reading glasses help us see close, and glasses position help us see far away. But what if you could have a pair that would let you see crystal clear at any distance? That's exactly what we've invented at Clarity View. We created a unique dual-lens technology that automatically adjusts to what you're looking at. So it doesn't matter whether you're near or farsighted or both. These glasses let you see sharp at any distance. These are called Clarity View glasses, and they're nothing like regular glasses. The dual focus lenses auto-adjust to adapt to the surface. Now, this is a game changer because one, it means it's done with using glasses. Two, they also block 99.9% of harmful blue light emanating from digital screens, like smartphones, laptops, tablets, and TVs. You can say goodbye to eye strain and headache. And three, the lenses darken automatically when it's close to sunlight, so they basically turn into sunglasses like daylight. In other words, it's like having two pairs of glasses in there. And that's not only practical, it looks extremely cool as well. If I'm reading a recipe up close or driving my car, it can shift on their own. I can see far, I can see deep. No switching glasses, no hunting around the house for the right pair. My team and I have worked on the lens design for years. Throughout the process, we did countless prototypes. It took years to refine the dual lens technology, and the issue ergonomics, we got it 100% right. The first time I put them on, everything was sharper, clearer, brighter. I could focus longer too, and no blinking or rubbing my eyes all day. It doesn't matter if you're farsighted, nearsighted, or both. It adapts to specific eyesight, ranging from -10 plus 10 diopters. It's like getting perfect vision on demand. All our Clarity View glasses are made right here in the U.S. from durable, high-quality materials, and every pair undergoes.
This is the deepest place on Earth, nearly 11,000 meters down. No sunlight, crushing pressure, and we know almost nothing about it. But now, one country is racing to explore these depths, and not just for science. China is deploying fleets of deep-sea robots, building underwater bases, and quietly moving to claim what lies at the bottom before anyone else can. As the U.S. does its ocean research programs, China is diving deeper, moving faster, and investing more aggressively than any nation in history. So what exactly is down there? Why is China so determined to get it first? To find out, we spent weeks digging through Chinese research, news reports, tracking vessels, and speaking with experts. What we found points to a much bigger story, and almost nobody is talking about it. Before we can grasp the full scale of what happened, we need to pull back and understand where we are. This is the Mariana Trench, a massive underwater canyon in the western Pacific, just east of the Philippines. It is the deepest part of the ocean, and one of the most extreme and hard-to-reach places on Earth. To get to the bottom, you have to travel through the ocean's entire water column. Let's dive down. We start at the surface, the photic zone, also called the epipelagic zone. Here, it's warm and bright, filled with coral reefs, schools of fish, and everything you think of when you picture the ocean. This is the part we swim, surf, and snorkel in. But this familiar layer only goes down about 200 meters. Go deeper, and things change. This here is the twilight zone, or the mesopelagic zone, stretching from 200 to 1,000 meters below the surface. Sunlight slowly fades to near darkness. As you descend, the pressure builds up to 10 times what we feel at sea level, enough to crush most surface-dwelling creatures. This zone is home to bizarre creatures like the oarfish, a silvery, serpent-like giant that can grow longer than a bus. And this here is the sea angel, a transparent, winged slug that flutters through the dark. As sunlight disappears and pressure rises, animals here adapt in strange ways, losing color, growing oversized eyes, or evolving soft, flexible bodies that won't collapse under pressure. The deeper you go, the stranger you get. At 1,000 meters, you enter the midnight zone. Total darkness. The only light is what the creatures make themselves, a natural glow known as bioluminescence. Animals here look like something from a sci-fi movie, with glowing lures, transparent bodies, and giant mouths.
You say there is no cure for adrenal-like swelling. You're wrong. Here's the adrenal vector breakthrough. A Texas foot specialist discovered after his wife had a near-fatal leg infection caused by edema. This easy 7-second leg strengthening ritual not only flushes edema fluid out of your legs and feet almost overnight, but keeps it from coming back. So powerful, in fact. It's now helped 54,000 men and women achieve healing sound legs with an unheard of 99.9% effectiveness rate. Here's why and how you can do this ritual tonight. Inside your legs is a network of lymphatic vessels. These vessels act like liquid highways that transport lymph fluid up and down your legs. This fluid delivers proteins and nutrients while also getting rid of waste. But after age 50, these liquid highways start breaking down because of muscle fall off. And because of this, the vessels become leaky and allow the lymph liquid to pass through and leak into your legs, causing edema. So if you want to stop edema swelling, all you need to do is straighten the vessels in your legs. Right? Well, not exactly. Because the most common treatment compression shock, water, and diuretic pills, blood raises or surgical drainage. It helps to lower legs, lengthen strengthen your leg muscles, and so the edema returns. It's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. It just doesn't work. If you truly want to say goodbye to edema leg swelling, then you have to strengthen your legs with liquid highways. Now, in the past, there was no easy way to do this. While most MDs claim there is no cure for edema, but thankfully, medical science is always advancing. And a colleague of mine, Dr. Gyro, a medical specialist out of Houston, has the medical community questioning everything they know about edema. Because after his wife had a near fatal infection in her legs triggered by edema, he made his admission to help her and other doctors couldn't. After months of late nights, going through medical textbooks and research papers, he discovered what he calls the 7-second vessel strengthening habit, because it takes just 7 seconds to do, flushes edema fluid through and out of your legs like normal, while also preventing your leg vessels from becoming leaky again. Which means you can live life normally, feeling thin, toned legs like you have when you were young, never again feeling to go out in public. Instead, you know your favorite health cooking problem. When I first heard about this, it made me question my whole practice, because it isn't a pill, low-fat diet. It's environment that pleases your life. It's a simple 7-step habit. So I started quietly mentioning it to select patients, the ones who weren't improving on standard treatment, and the results were shocking. For example, 59-year-old Elizabeth Roberts said, "Since starting this, my life has changed completely. The swelling in my legs has reduced significantly. I feel lighter, more energetic, and sexy again. My husband even complimented how great my legs look in my new sundress." Patricia Hernandez, 71, said, "I ditched my water pills and compression socks. I'm sleeping better and have so much more energy. I even went dancing with friends last week. I feel like a new woman with my freedom now." Or Carolyn, 65, who reached out to us happier than ever, mentioning how just weeks after starting this habit, the agonies and aching disappeared. She wore a short dress to her grandmother's birthday party and received so many compliments and felt like she got a new lease on life. And they are just 3 out of 54,000 people whose lives have been transformed for the better. If you're interested to see how they did it, I left the link to Dr. Gyro's free presentation. When you talk about below, you'll learn his exact method to achieve slim, youthful legs, and how to say goodbye to a Venus swelling once and for all. Talk about below now. Oh yeah, really?
Maybe sit around a little bit out there.
This horrific creature here, for example, is the Magna Pinna squid. It has long, spidery arms that can reach over 6 meters and seem to dangle like puppet strings in the dark. Nightmare fuel. Down here, pressure builds to 100 times what we feel at sea level, about 1,500 pounds on every square inch of your body. That's like a full-grown elephant pressing down on your fingertips, and that same force surrounding you from every direction. One of the most well-known creatures from this zone is the blobfish. In its natural habitat at the upper end of the midnight zone, it looks like a normal deep-sea fish, adapted perfectly to the intense pressure. But when it's brought to the surface, all that pressure disappears, and the blobfish expands into the gelatinous shape you might have seen online. The blobfish is a perfect reminder of just how extreme the pressure is down here, and how life can adapt to survival. But you keep thinking, and at 4,000 meters, you reach what's called the abyssopelagic zone, or simply the abyss. It's cold, dark, and quiet. Life is sparse, but not absent. And here's where the barren seafloor might surprise you. At first glance, it looks like plain, boring mud. But that mud is deceiving. Have you ever wondered what happens to everything in the ocean when it dies? The fish, the sharks, even the tiniest plankton. Eventually, everything that lives above sinks. Some of it falls as waste, some as tiny particles, digested and expelled by other creatures. Over time, it all builds up. Over millions of years, all this organic matter drifts down and settles onto the seafloor. A gentle snowfall known as marine snow. Layer by layer, it forms soft, carbon-rich mud. In some places, that mud is over a kilometer thick, more than 3,000 feet, made from the remains of everything that once lived above. And while these layers preserve the ocean's history, they also trap carbon, turning the deep sea into one of the planet's most powerful natural carbon sinks. But even with all that marine snow piling up, life down here is scarce. Most creatures survive on scraps, adapted to a world where real food is hard to come by. But every so often, something incredible happens. Something massive sinks. And when it does, it changes everything. This here is what scientists call a whale fall. When a dead whale falls to the sea floor, it becomes a magnet for life. And here you can see it. These sea scavengers moving in within hours. First, sharks and hagfish, then worms, snails, and bacteria. Over time, a whole ecosystem forms around the remains, surviving on a single fallen body. See these tiny hair-like things stuck to the bones? These are worms.
Wow.
One whale can support life here for years, a burst of energy in a place where opportunities are rare. And when it comes, life doesn't waste a moment. And yet, surviving here still isn't easy. The temperature is just above freezing, and the pressure is crushing, more than 400 times what we feel at the surface. That's like balancing 7 full-grown elephants on your fingertips and feeling that weight pressing in from all sides. You're descending further. You're now deeper than 6,000 meters below the surface. This is the Hadal Zone, named after the Greek god Hades, ruler of the underworld. It's trench territory. From here on out, the only places that go deeper are ocean trenches. Very few submarines can even reach this far down. The pressure in these depths is more than 600 times what we feel at the surface. To survive it, the sub needs a near-perfect, pressure-proof design, something only a handful of submersibles on Earth have ever achieved. And finally, at nearly 11,000 meters, we hit the bottom of the Mariana Trench. That's deeper than Mount Everest is tall. And the pressure is so intense that it would feel like 90 full-grown elephants pressing into every fingertip-sized area of your body, from all sides. Welcome in springtime, Hellman's delicious classic deviled eggs. Irresistibly rich and creamy, tone and blue. But here's the incredible part. Life still exists. Some of it in strange forms, like giant, single-celled organisms called xenocytophores that filter food from the sea floor. They thrive under pressure that would crush most life. Tiny, pale shrimp creep silently across the mud. Life here is rare, but it's perfectly adapted to the experience. So what else could be in these trenches? We know life survives, but there's still so much more we haven't seen. Let's stay at the bottom of the Mariana Trench for a moment. This underwater canyon stretches more than 2,500 kilometers across the Pacific, about the distance from New York to Denver. But not every part of it is the same depth. Because near the western end, there's a point that plunges even deeper. A pit within the trench. If the Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the ocean, then what's the deepest part of the trench? That's where we find Challenger Deep, the most extreme depth on Earth's sea floor. It doesn't go any deeper than this. It was first reached in 1960. A Swiss engineer, Jacques Picard, and U.S. Navy Lieutenant John Walsh made the descent in a steel skier attached to a massive float. That first dive lasted just 20 minutes. Then, over 50 years, no one followed until filmmaker James Cameron drove solo in 2012. He captured footage, gathered samples, and made it back safely. A few years later, explorer and multi-millionaire Victor Vescova built a high-tech sub called the Limiting Factor. He made multiple dives, collecting detailed data from the bottom. Each of these missions had something in common. They were rare, expensive, and mostly one-off. That is, until China got involved. What comes next might be surprising, because China's deep sea activity isn't just about science. It opens up a much deeper story, one that doesn't show up in headlines. To tell it properly, our team dug into research papers, satellite data, and government reports. Some of them not always easy to access securely. And that's where Surfshark VPN came in. It encrypts our connection, protects our data, and offers features like Clean Web to block trackers and ads, ensuring a safe and private browsing experience. Surfshark also allows us to access content from different regions, which is extremely useful when researching international topics. It runs seamlessly across all our devices, keeping our work uninterrupted, secure, and without leaving any digital traces. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description to get 4 extra months of Surfshark and a 30-day money-back guarantee. A big thanks to Surfshark for supporting our work. Now, let's look at how China went from one deep sea dive to something far more ambitious. In 2020, China sent a team of 3 to the bottom in a sub called Hahaha. It was their deepest dive ever. But here's what made their effort different. They didn't stop. They doubled down. Each new sub was smaller, more advanced, and designed to return again and again. By 2024, China had moved beyond cruise missions. And this is what it looked like. A robot no bigger than a shoebox dropped into one of the most hostile environments on Earth. No pilot, no cable. It crawled across the sea floor under its own power and came back intact. That moment marked a shift from rare missions to something repeatable, scalable, and far more ambitious. Because if one tiny robot can do what used to take a massive sub, what happens when you build a fleet of them? By the way, if you're into this kind of deep, untold science, consider subscribing. We go where the headlines don't. Hahaha wasn't the end. It was the start of something bigger.
You got a virus on your computer?
Yeah.
Yes, earthquake. That's me. We was waiting for that word now. Sorry about that. Single farmers on Reiki. No. I know. I said it and all that. But it's like Sophie Sweat.
Nope, not in our house. My website.
Sarah doesn't want to go to college. You should have anywhere you want me to be involved. Girl, right? It's recommendations on all my people. Do you like to go on a date with me?
Yeah. Cool.
China is developing a new generation of deep sea robots. Small, autonomous machines that glide, crawl, or flex their way through the deep. Built for different tasks, they work together in fleets, covering more ground, more often, and at a fraction of the cost of crude stuff. So what are they hoping to find? The deep sea holds more than strange creatures and extreme pressures. This here is a cold sea, a place where methane and hydrogen sulfide seep up from beneath the sea floor. It may not look like much, but these gases feed entire ecosystems, mussels, clams, and tube worms that survive without sunlight, living off chemical energy instead. Why does this matter to China? Because cold seas are more than strange deep sea oases. They're natural test beds. They show how life thrives in extreme conditions. They offer models for future energy systems. And they resemble environments scientists believe exist on some of the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. To a country racing to control the deep and reach beyond Earth, places like this are priceless. Now look at this. What looks like frozen snow packed into the sea bed is actually something far more unusual. Methane hydrate, or fire hydrate. It forms when methane gas gets trapped inside a cage of ice under high pressure and cold temperatures. And yes, if you light it, it burns. Scientists are studying it as a potential fuel source, but extracting it is risky. Disturb the sea floor too much, and you could trigger underwater landslides or release large amounts of methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, into the ocean and atmosphere. The fact that we're even seeing it here at these depths shows just how far deep sea exploration has come. And it raises the next question. What other resources might be buried down here? See these round, lumpy rocks scattered across the seabed? You're looking at polymetallic nodules, small potato-sized rocks resting on the ocean floor. Inside, they contain valuable metals like cobalt, nickel, copper, and manganese. These metals are essential for building batteries, electric vehicles, and renewable energy systems. And this is how they're collected. A surface ship lowers a robotic mining vehicle down to the sea floor. That vehicle crawls along the bottom, scooping up the top layer of sediment along with the nodules. Everything it collects is pumped back up through a pipe to the ship. As collector vehicles crawl across the seabed, they pick up massive clouds of sediment known as fumes. These clouds can smother fragile habitats and drift for miles. After the nodules are processed, a second plume of waste is pumped back into the ocean, adding to the chaos. If this ramps up before we understand the long-term impact, the damage could be irreversible. Some scientists warn the sea floor could take centuries to recover, if it recovers at all. And with no clear consensus on how to manage the waste or where to put it, one thing is clear. We're charging into the deep without a full picture of the cost. Many marine biologists are deeply concerned about deep sea mining as a whole. Those ecosystems are slow to recover and incredibly fragile. Disrupting them could wipe out species we haven't even discovered yet and destroy habitats that took millions of years to form. All of this, the nodules, the seep, and the tools to reach them, makes one thing clear. The extreme deep sea is no longer out of reach. It's rich in resources, and it's becoming more accessible by the day. But if the deep sea becomes the next resource frontier, who decides how it's used or protected? Right now, regulations are sparse, and ambition is outpacing oversight.
Graduating, I needed a website that could handle all of my important documents. WordPress refilled my forms, stored everything I could evolve, and even protected my identity after I got married, after my name on my social security card, ID, and passport, all of them.
WordPress made it so easy to apply for and manage it all in one place.
Triple the document. The WordPress organized
China sees that opening, they're not just observing or experimenting. They're getting ready to extract, to claim, to secure what's down here before anyone else does. They're investing in long-term presence. Right now, they're planning to build a permanent base 2,000 meters underwater, designed for 6 scientists to live and work for up to 30 days at a time. It's like a space station, but on the ocean floor. And it gives China something even more